A new trading week is upon us here on Wall Street, and before we kick things off right behind me here at the New York Stock Exchange, investors, they are continuing to try to figure out if last week was a fluke or a sign of more things to come, because just 2 weeks ago, U.S. markets were at all-time highs, flirting with historical records. Because last week, U.S. stocks snapped a 5-week winning streak amid heavy inflation fears. The October Consumer Price Index released last Wednesday showed inflation at its hottest pace in more than 30 years. And then on Friday, U.S. consumer sentiment for early November came out, and that figure its lowest level in a decade, with survey respondents citing rising inflation costs. No real surprise there, but what was also a surprise was American workers, leaving their jobs at record numbers in September, with 4.43 million people quitting, according to the U.S. Labor Department. The exodus occurring as the U.S. has 10.44 million employment openings that month. But now we look ahead. Will the good times return, or will inflation concerns and growth woes continue to grow? Let's now take a look to see what will likely move the markets in the week ahead. Now we kick off the week on Monday, and that begins in the nation of China, with that nation's October retail sales figures due out. Expectations call for a read of 3.5%. Now Tuesday first kicks off in Europe. First in the United Kingdom with the ILO September 3M unemployment rate. Expectations call for an unchanged read of 4.5%. Meanwhile, in the European Union, preliminary third quarter GDP due. Expectations call for a read of 2.2%. Well, right here in the United States, we have October retail sales figures. October retail sales expected at 0.7%. And then on Wednesday, we return right across the pond to the United Kingdom with the British October Consumer Price Index due out. Currently, that figure sits at 0.3% month over month and 3.1% year over year. While right here in the United States, housing starts and building permits, they're due out as well. Moving on to Thursday, we do see us back in the European Union with that region's consumer price index. Currently, the index sits at 0.5% month over month and 4.1% year over year. While here in the United States, we have the weekly initial and continuing jobless claims figures. And then we close out the week on Friday, and that begins first in the nation of Japan. Japanese import and export figures are due out. Imports currently sit at 38.6%, exports 13%. While the rest of the data comes out of Europe. First in the United Kingdom with British November consumer confidence. Expectations for British consumer confidence, -16. Also, British retail sales numbers await. Expectations call for 0.5% month over month and -0.4% year over year. While in Europe, ECB President Christine Lagarde, she is scheduled to speak. And before we end this report, also keep an eye on the combination of earnings reports, which continue to be released, not as much as before, as we're more in the twilight of the earnings season, but also keep an eye on those geopolitical headlines, especially here in the United States, with all of the introductory bills being presented by the Joe Biden administration. And until next week, live from the New York Stock Exchange, wishing you all a great and safe weekend, I'm James Sweeney, reporting for ICM.